Hey everybody, something just struck me. It's pretty simple, but it seems to strike at the core of so many issues that people are experiencing today that I just had to get it out there as quickly as possible because it seems like this might even be, one of, if not the core issues of the day, and that's the equality narrative. And I'm not talking about equality under the law. Like, if a rich person commits a murder and a poor person commits a murder, they ought to, assuming we prove everything equally, they ought to get the same punishment. It's not even about, democracy with one person, one vote, or equal representation, or anything like that. It's about the narrative, the literal narrative that people are somehow identical to each other, and not in any of these, symbolic ways, not equally valuable as a human being where, if you were hurt and somebody else is hurt, that's the same level of a crime or a harm. We're talking about people who actually believe that people are identical, that if you take two people and put them in similar situations, that you should expect the exact same outcome between two completely different people. And it almost seems like they don't realize that they're acting out this false political narrative. It's some kind of mysterious, legendary kind of thing where I think even they know that people are not equal to each other, but they, because of their political ideals or their emotional situation, they won't allow themselves to admit it. Listen, I've got a little brother. He shares as much DNA with me as anybody on this planet does, and I would not ask my little brother to fix my computer. I don't ask him to drive me to uh, the store if I don't have to. Um, I'm just try to convey here that I'm not talking about racism per se or different races. I'm talking about people within the same family, people within the same group. Because if you take this equality narrative to the most extreme, shouldn't every single baseball game end in a tie and therefore never end? Shouldn't every person be equally qualified for every job? When you have this false idea in your head that everyone is equal, and I think I've made this point before, but people will willingly recognize genius in a few genius individuals. Like if if I said Einstein is a genius and he is a unique human being and he is special, and in certain ways he is better than you and he's better than me at doing theoretical physics. That's an uncontroversial statement for whatever reason. And then I ask these people, I guess they have this blank slate theory of raising children or human beings, that human beings are identical until they make impact with the environment. I'm like, oh, well, why didn't we just study Einstein's childhood arrangement? Wouldn't we get a bunch of children that are all just, primed to be theoretical physicists or do some kind of job requiring a high level IQ on that level? I mean, he was born in the 1800s. Even if he was rich, he probably couldn't have had that good of a lifestyle compared to, what most people are experiencing in the developed world today. So this whole narrative, and just casually you know, casually suggesting that, you know what, people are not the same. People are not identical. People are different. People have different abilities. People have different ways of thinking. People have different tempers. People have different levels of emotions that they experience. People are fucking different. And you can realize this without being racist. Because if you actually follow the words of Martin Luther King that people remember, it's that judging a person by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Well, the downside of that is if you have a shitty character still, you're still going to be judged on that shitty character. And so you've got these people clinging to this victim narrative. And I just don't think that they realize how much they're clinging to the literal equality narrative, not the metaphorical equality narrative. And I think I was watching this guy, Asian dude named Yang. He's running for president as a Democrat with UBI, Universal Basic Income, as his main thrusting point, his main agenda item, which is basically giving a certain amount of money to everybody in the nation every month, regardless of how much money they make, which is a deep subject and I don't want to get too far off track. But even he said, say, on the subject of free college, he was kind of debating some of the ideas of Bernie Sanders. And he said, we have to realize that college is not the end all and be all. And I agree with that. You know, I'm not a Democrat, but he's got me interested in certain ways. And it's because he's willing to make statements like that. It's like, you know what? Some people are going to go to trade school. Some people are going to go into the military. Some people are going to go into these different trade fields that are necessary and are going to produce a good income and a good lifestyle. But the way we've got the K through 12 system set up, we've got it set up like college is the only way for every single person to go. And that's part of the reason why the college system is so messed up, is because it has to find things to do for a lot of people that really have no business being there, that really should have been directed a different way. And we're wasting a lot of the human capital by directing them that. And that's because I would argue, going back to this equality narrative, that especially if people can't accept it about themselves and others, it's even worse when you try to get them to accept it about their kids. When you, as an educator, have to go to the parents of a child and at a certain age, after certain test scores, after they've received a certain amount of, you know, state mandated funds towards their education, and they're coming up with certain test scores, and you can see the patterns of it. We can tell pretty early if your kid is going to be a genius or not. We can tell pretty early if your kid is going to be on a college track or not. It's not a matter of putting your kid through a few more expensive prep courses. It's not a matter of willpower is certainly a part of it, but just just by suggesting that, by yelling at everybody and saying that they're all going to college and we're going to all spend all this money to send you to college, just to be a social, to maintain some kind of social normativity, that we don't want to feel bad that you aren't actually qualified to go to college and aren't actually qualified to do something high level, that you're not going to reach the epitome of mankind or a high level job, that you probably need to learn how to, code medical files or you know, learn how to do plumbing, or learn how to do welding, or learn how to do any number of things that are still useful and necessary, but don't necessarily require you to have 140 or 150 IQ and spend 8 years in school to learn, costing you, $250,000 in debt. And we're actually doing a massive disservice to that. But it's because we can't get people to abandon this equality narrative, that everybody is somehow the same. And therefore, if somebody is better than somebody else, it must be because they stole something or got a better environment than somebody else, and that's the only reason why they achieved at that higher level than you did or your kid did. Because that's complete bullshit. I mean, go back to the example of my brother. We had the same exact, living environment. We went to a lot of the same schools. We had a lot of the same teachers. I mean, we were born a couple of years apart. But if, you know, if tiny environmental factors like what the barometric pressure was the day he was born was going to produce the gap between what I do and what my brother does, which is probably like 300 IQ, 30 IQ points, if not more. Um, that's then it's out of our hands. We can't affect that. If the big stuff was the same, if the household, the schools, the school districts, the teachers, all of these things were the same. And I know in my own family, I've got somebody who has, there wasn't a single day where we thought, yeah, he's going to engineering school when he grows up, or he's going to be a scientist. I mean, we grew up next to fucking NASA in the 80s and 90s in Houston. You know, the environment was primed to anybody who had the spark for science to get it. And he didn't get it. So everybody can't get it. And this is just I don't get it. Why do people cling on to this idea? You need to accept your own limits. Yeah, keep trying to improve yourself, but not every difference between human beings is either stolen or unearned or a result of the environment. Some people are just better at certain things than you are, and that doesn't eliminate your dignity as a human being. I'm not suggesting that we start going around euthanizing people because they're below a certain IQ level. I'm just saying that you can't necessarily resort to violence, and government action is violence, in order to assuage your emotional state of disturbance because you can't deal with the fact that there are people that are better than you in this world. And there's going to be a lot of people better than you. I mean, it's one of those real basic things in life. It's like, you know, the coach telling you in basketball or Little League or whatever, telling you there's always going to be somebody better than you. And unless you're literally the best person in the world at something, that's good advice. So you want to keep working hard and keep improving. What you don't want to do is get bitter and resentful and try to pull people down to your level so you can pretend they're equal. That's all I've got, folks. I'll talk to you later. Bye.